Hi, my name is Bill Harper. I'm a customer success specialist for AppDynamics. And today we're going to be giving you an overview and a demo on navigating the Splunk AppDynamics Controller. What we're going to do is we're going to go into several key areas as we demonstrate the controller, including the overview page, the applications and flow maps page, business transactions, tiers and nodes, servers, containers, and clusters. We're going to talk about backends, databases, and remote services. And then lastly, we're going to hit a little bit on troubleshooting. This is meant to be a basic overview just to get you started with the AppDynamics controller. Now let's head on over to the Splunk AppDynamics controller, and we're going to go through some navigations and just show you a bit around in the controller. We're starting on the overview page. Shows a listing of all the key resources in AppDynamics, including the applications we're monitoring, dashboards that we have, databases we're monitoring, servers we're monitoring, just to name a few. You can see also an indication of the health of that particular item by its color. As you can see on this overview page, we've got some items in red, in yellow, and green, and that tells you which are healthy and which are not. You can also see across the top here, I always like to show this to people, some items across the top, which is unified monitoring. This kind of shows you the different swim lanes that AppDynamics can monitor in terms of the application stack, from browser apps to mobile apps. Heart and core of AppDynamics, of course, is application monitoring, database monitoring, servers, and we've got this analytics feature, which is used by many parts of the product and is very valuable. There's a nice Getting Started tab here that will help you getting started in terms of setting up your applications and your agents. There's an Agent Management tab here that we'll go to in another demo. This is a basic overview demo here, so we're not going to get into the weeds on application or agent management in this demo. Let's next go into applications. And what you see here is a list of the applications that AppDynamics is monitoring within this controller. Again, you can see by color if any of the applications are having issues. You can see a few metrics next to each application, key metrics like the response time, the number of calls per minute, and you can see them across the top in that tile. At the top right-hand corner, I always like to introduce the time picker early on in the demo, which allows you to see through a time series lens what's happening with the particular application. This is set to 5 minutes here, but we could put it back to the last hour. We could put it back to the last day, just to get a historical view of what's been happening with our applications. And this is very, very handy when you're troubleshooting applications. Next, we're going to dive into a specific application called Docker-Ohio, and we're going to go through some items within that application and just show you around, show you some of the things that AppDynamics can do. Now, as I said earlier, we're going to double click into Docker-Ohio and talk a little bit about what view this is. Once we click in, we see a topology view of the application with data flowing through it. If I hover over one of these notes here, you'll see the data flowing through it. It shows how the application is communicating internally to provide its services. This view is called the flow map. It shows the tiers are the outer circle, the nodes are the inner circle, and you can also see the backends, which can include databases, message queues, or APIs that are part of the application. Backends are connected to the tier in the application and service the tier. The flow map is automatically generated by AppDynamics once the agents are installed and users start interacting with the application and data starts flowing through the different nodes and tiers within the application. AppDynamics monitors the application. It creates a baseline as it monitors the application so it knows automatically what is normal and what is not normal. When AppDynamics senses an application or component not performing within the normal range, it will trigger a health rule violation. On the right-hand side of the flow map, you can see several key indicators, including anomalies, events, business transactions, server health, transaction scorecard. The upper right-hand side, we pointed this out earlier. This is the time picker, and the time picker pretty much persists through all of AppDynamics. So as you go into the different views and you need to look at different time windows, you can definitely use the time picker. If you go to the bottom here, these are some very critical measurements, generally referred to as is the red metrics. This is the load that's on the application. This is the response time that the user's getting from the application, and this is sort of the error rate of the application. What we're going to do next is click into business transactions and doing some drilling in there. As I click into business transactions, you can see a list of the core business transactions for this application, AD Capital Docker, Ohio. Business transaction is a core feature of AppDynamics, and business transactions is how users interact with the application, so it's a key indicator of the health of the application. That's why we measure business transactions for their health. Under business transaction options, you can see a list of the business transactions for the application that we're looking at now, as well as the overall health of each one of the BTs. You can see there response time, calls per minute, errors per minute, slow transactions, very slow, stalled, across the metrics for the business transaction. We can click into one of the business transactions like the customer login, and you can see a mini flow map of how the business transaction traverses the application tiers, nodes, and backends. I'm going to go ahead and click on customer login, and we can see that it did create a flow map of how that particular business transaction is working. Next, we're going to head on over to service endpoints. There's a lot of things under business transactions we could go into, but this is an introductory navigational video for the AppD controller. So we're not going to go into any of these things up here, like events, slow, response time errors, or transaction snapshots. So jumping into service endpoints, here you can see a list of the service endpoints that are part of this application. Service endpoints are associated to a tier and how the application communicates internally between each component of the application. Service endpoints track 3 key metrics, including number of calls, response time, and error rate. You can also see the tier that's associated with the service endpoint if you look out to the very right-hand side. Next, let's head on over to the tiers and node option on the sidebar menu. The tiers and node option shows you a list of the tiers in the application and their health. By picking a tier and opening the caret, we can see the nodes that are supporting the tier and the version of the machine agent that is running. I'll go ahead and do that on the authentication service here. There's the node and there's the version of the machine agent that's running. By clicking on the top menu, we can actually get different views of the tiers and nodes. We can look by health, which is the default. We can look by hardware resources being utilized, and we can also look at the memory in terms of Java, which is quite useful. We can also look at a flow map of the nodes that are supporting the tiers. I just double-clicked into that to show you what that looks like. Going back to the main part of nodes and tiers, next we're going to head on into the servers menu here. And what you can see here is we can see information about the host, including metrics around CPU, memory, disk, and networking. These metrics are coming from the machine or server viz agent and are correlated back to the application. If we double click on this host here, and one thing I want to say is we're doing this all in context with this application. So you're only going to see the servers and the resources that this application has. And so I'm going to double click into the server here, and you can see we got quite a bit more information: load average, availability, CPU, memory, network errors, properties. We can look at other things on the server here. We can look at all the processes that are running. We can look at the containers. We can request logs if we want to. But let's go back and take a look at containers. And I could have clicked on the containers menu in that last server screen, and it would have shown me the same view. It's going to show me the containers that make up this application. This application, as you saw, is running on a single host. It's made up of 4 containers here, and we can see the containers, and we can get more information about the containers if we want to double click in and get some more information about the container. So next, we're going to continue down the menu list here for this particular application. And we'll see a couple databases pop up here. This is the database feature, And we're not running the database agent or collector on this instance, but you can see that we're getting metrics that are reporting in from the language agent, the Java agent. We can get response time, number of calls per minute, any sort of errors that are going on. So it's actually a pretty nice view of what's going on with the database, even without the database agent. And the database agent lets you drill in a little bit more and look at things that are happening within the database, where we're just measuring a couple basic metrics here, round-trip metrics. Remote services, again, in context with this application, these are the remote services that are being used. It looks like there's a couple one API call and one sort of JMS. And again, we consider databases, remote services, like APIs and message queues to be backends to the tier. So let's just take a little peek at the troubleshooting feature in AppDynamics. AppDynamics is basically purchased by our customers to help them get to root cause of applications, dig into response times with business transactions, errors, health rule violations, anomaly. Again, this is one of the main reasons people use monitoring and AppDynamics in particular to understand if their application is having problems, how can they get to the root cause and how can they actually get that fixed. So that's it for looking through an application in context and all the different navigation features on the left-hand side. So now that we've gone through all the items for a particular application navigation, tiers and nodes, service endpoints, containers, all that good kind of stuff, what I wanted to take you guys through now is sort of a global overview. We were in context with an application, double-clicking through it, looking at all the particulars, including the metrics and that sort of thing. But at a global view, I wanted to kind of show you what else was available in AppDynamics. And we started on this menu here, and we kind of talked through some of these. When we drilled into the application, we came into applications, we went into AD Capital Docker and drilled in and continued to look at all the different points about that application. AppDynamics also has a user experience feature where we can monitor browser apps, mobile apps, IoT connected devices, and Synthetics API. We do have Synthetics for browser as well. This is our database feature. When you set up our database agent or database collector, you can monitor the databases at a more fine, granular level, all the way down to like SQL statements and things like that. This is a global overview of all the servers that this particular instance of AppDynamics is monitoring. We do have the capability to monitor Kubernetes clusters too. I'll just give you a quick peek at that. That's kind of the main dashboard. So that's sort of our infrastructure monitoring. Analytics. So AppDynamics has an analytics feature, and what we're seeing here is what we call transaction analytics. There's various parts of the product that use analytics, and there's a whole series that we've built on using analytics all the way up to the advanced analytics, which is doing queries against the data that's in the analytics data store. We have dashboards and reporting, which I'm not going to go into. And then the last thing is alerting and responding, which we are going to have a series on alerting and responding as well. And we do have an open telemetry feature for AppDynamics. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up right now. I want to thank everybody for listening in to this demo, and we will call it quits for now. Thanks.